Hey everybody, this is Perch. There's a Screen Rant article out that a bunch of people are reacting to. It's news, so people are reacting to any news. Anyway, the basic idea is DC. This is the article. DC is outshining Marvel in comics and cinema. So, and then there's a more explosive headline, I would guess, on Screen Rant says Marvel's reign is dead. DC just killed it. It's always good to speak in absolute terms. No pun intended for DC. So is Marvel dead? Well, I mean, before we get there, like, subscribe, give me money. No, I'm kidding. Before we get there, some context for this article. So basically what the article is saying is a lot more subdued, I would say, than the headline of Marvel is dead and all the rest. It's more along the lines of, hey, for a long time, DC has struggled to compete with Marvel. It's funny because people forget that DC did run the table on Marvel and was on top of Marvel during the New 52 for at least a year. But anyway, so do we speak in terms of DC has just delivered a death blow to Marvel? A lot of the logic sets up the kind of birth and origin of the MCU, which was Iron Man in 2008, and how it kicked off this big cinematic universe, and how after the Infinity Saga, the movies have not captured the same level of excitement. That there isn't, that just, they hurt. Screen Rant ties that to comic sales have been hurt by the MCU falling. I entirely disagree with that. I think there's very little correlation behind the MCU's rise and the comic sales, and I mean, and that's factual. You could kind of one-to-one look at them that way. Unfortunately, and it isn't the most intuitive thing, but unfortunately, the movies doing really well never led to a bonanza for comics. It just didn't. It led to a bonanza for people going into comic shops, for buying Funko Pops at different times, for buying merchandise, for being interested in the Marvel Universe, but very little of it, moved over. I mean, case in point, we had both Captain Marvel and Black Panther within roughly a 12-month period make $1 billion each in the box office. Their comics never hit those heights. Ta-Nehisi Coates never got the Black Panther to any kind of high-selling number. The only times that it at all moved the needle had nothing to do with the comic itself, but had to do with the relaunch and variant covers. That literally was it. So the argument is that DC is outshining Marvel in cinema, and they point to kind of two things, mainly Superman, and also a little bit the Peacemaker kind of hype around that. So, the argument is Superman outshone Fantastic Four. And it did by a little less than $100 million. But, it's also Superman, a worldwide kind of phenomenon character against the Fantastic Four. And as much as I love the Fantastic Four to death, you're talking about the birth with a new person at the helm and, the start of DC. You're basically talking about 2008's Iron Man. The equivalent of that was Superman. And you're talking about the Fantastic Four, which, again, I love it to death, but it's kind of sandwiched in the middle of a bunch of other things. It's not the most known property that Marvel has. And then on top of that, then they go on to say that the DC comics are blowing everything away as well. And they talk about All In. The All In initiative did it brilliantly, bringing in new fans. That's not true. I mean, bluntly, if you subtract, and you can't, to be fair, but if you subtract the absolute universe out of All In, you're not seeing massive, sales and everything. You're not seeing any major change. The major change is the absolute line of comics has done well, but the regular DC universe, Batman books, the Justice League books, you're not seeing anything out of the ordinary. What you have seen is the absolute line has landed. So, if you're talking about, DC All In brought a bunch of new readers in as a whole, the absolute universe did. And I think it's an important distinction. By the way, I'm not poo-pooing the accomplishment. It's good. It's all net good. Just you need to understand where the good sits. The good sits with the absolute universe. And I think that you can certainly kind of leverage that, but DC hasn't proven they can do line-wide, growth. So far, they're really counting on the halo effect of this KO event and other things. Okay, that's fine. Um, but it's a little bit, I mean, this article, which is Marvel is dead, DC delivered a death blow. And here is, I'll read you verbatim the paragraph. DC's resurgence is undeniable, spanning both comics and cinema, with the Absolute Universe driving record-breaking comic sales. They're strong sales. Let's not. Okay, don't be high. Okay, I think we had comic sales where 6 million copies of X-Men were sold once upon a time. We're not in that territory, so let's back it up here, Screen Rant. But anyway, and James Gunn DCU films dominating the box office. There's been one, okay, but there's no plural. Okay, so again, it's funny because I find myself in this position of I'm not knocking the success, and I'm happy for them, and I mean, good for them. It's a good thing. But why is it that people can't take just the success they have? Why do they have to exaggerate into stupid territory, which is what this article has done? Anyway, Absolute Batman top 2044 sales charts. Superman outpaced Marvel's Fantastic Four first steps. DC has proven itself and positioned itself as the definitive leader for both longtime fans and newcomers alike. Looking ahead, this marks the start of a new golden era for DC, built on accessibility, fresh storylines, and bold cinematic ambition. That is written by ChatGPT. While Marvel struggles with Phase 5 fatigue and audience burnout, DC's Gods and Monsters initiative signals a bright future, proving that Marvel's reign is over and DC has claimed the crown as the new king of superhero content. I mean, okay. Okay, you're jumping to that conclusion really fast. Good on DC. They're doing a lot of good things. Glad that Superman was successful. Glad that the Absolute Universe is doing well. Glad that DC seems to have a plan. I mean, the biggest argument to make, which was nowhere in the article was just saying, hey, here's a moment in time where everything was better for DC. It's clearly winning and Marvel is over forever. They are dead now. Like that's a kind of stupid ass talk that we've seen on the other side of the aisle for a lot of comic stuff. I mean, good God. What wasn't in the article that I think could be said and would be the strongest argument for DC beating Marvel right now and having a brighter future is that DC seems to have a plan and Marvel does not. Very bluntly, Marvel is trapped in a world where it doesn't seem clear there is a plan. The MCU's plan appears to be Robert Downey Jr. is going to be Doctor Doom, and all the heroes are going to show up in one film again, and it's going to be huge. But if you think about how the Infinity Saga was built up, and when we got to the Infinity War, the first of the two, there was a lot of just overwhelming excitement for what was coming. We don't have that for Doomsday yet. The trailers may help with that, but Marvel and Disney have to ignite some magic to get people excited. And that doesn't exist at the moment. There is and by the way, Superman beat Fantastic Four by a little bit less than $100 million. Now, who wouldn't want $100 million? But that's not exactly blowing things out of the water. The death of Marvel Forever. That's a pretty close contest for a major character against a team. But the other factor, like I said, Marvel, they have in the comics line, it's worse than the movies. At least with the movies, there's some point to, we've got a couple of Avengers films. We do have Robert Downey Jr. It is some major threat. Secret Wars is, a name that has some meaning to fans. All those things, sound good. And I think, can bring about some excitement. On the comic book side, what is there? Look, the major event in comics for Marvel was One World Under Doom. It has such a poor response, and it's selling so poorly that they spoiled the end of it. And this big spoiler is Scarlet Witch is going to be a new Sorcerer Supreme, which nobody gives a shit about. And then we're getting next summer, Chip Zdarsky and again, no knock against him, but of all people, Chip Zdarsky is going to do something that is going to be like Avengers Disassembled, 20 years ago. Well, less than that, but that's like the big hype. The big plan is, hey, remember how we did something that was kind of disruptive like 15 years ago? We're going to do that again. That's going to happen again. I mean, that's not a plan. With the X-Men, it's like, hey, we're going to come out of Age of Revolution and there's going to be some books. There'll be some new books. We hope you buy them. That's the plan. Like if you look into like the kind of the momentum of like a guy like Tom Brevoort, it's just sleepy. There's nothing. Like that Marvel looks absolutely like the old man who's fallen asleep in front of the fire under a cozy blanket, and DC is off doing shit. In the comic instance, it does look now. Yeah, we'll see how KO works out. We'll see if they deliver a satisfying conclusion to this, and then they relaunch a bunch of books, and we'll see Ryan North on a DC book, and maybe it will be exciting. Um, who knows? Mariko Tamaki will be on another book, and we'll see if that's exciting, and maybe it will be. But at least there's a sense that DC has a plan for the future. Marvel, it's they have all the vibes of, it's giving off just indifference. That's what we got out of Marvel. So anyway, interesting article, I guess. It has the same quality of writing that like Cosmic Book News has. It just there's nothing there. The facts that are brought up are, not circumstantial. Just like, hey, there's a popular movie, so clearly DC is gonna be dominant forever because they got a movie. Like it's just some of the dumbest writing ever. But whatever. Here we have it. All right. What do you think? Is Marvel dead? Has DC killed them? Let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe. And thanks for listening.